Hi, and welcome to the second video for the Ticket Out the Doors for Math 126. This is our second set of Ticket Out the Doors. It's the Ticket Out the Doors we had between exam number 1 prior to exam 2. So the first one we have here is from March 4th. And the first question we have is find the equation of the line perpendicular to x minus 4y plus 3 is 0 through the point negative 1, 3. And we want this in y equals mx plus b form. So, concept questions again. If we have a parallel line, what do we know about their slopes? They're equal. If we have perpendicular line, what do we know about their slopes? They're negative reciprocals. So we need to first find the slope of this line, then do negative reciprocal because we're looking for perpendicular. This is our symbol for perpendicular here. So we do what? We have x minus 4, y plus 3 is 0. So subtract x, subtract 3 from both sides. I get negative 4y is negative x minus 3. So divide everything by negative 4. And I get y equals negative over negative is positive. So 1/4 x plus 3/4. So the slope of this line is positive 1/4. So the negative reciprocal is what? Well, it's positive switches to negative. 1/4 becomes 4/1. So the slope of the perpendicular line becomes negative 4. Now, I have the slope, I have a point, use my point slope formula. That's y minus y1 is the slope m, x minus x1, negative 1. So be careful with our negative signs. We have y minus 3. This guy is like x plus 1, so negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Add 3 to both sides. We get y equals negative 4x minus 1. So that's question number 1. And it's in y equals mx plus b form. Y equals mx plus b. Number 2 is our circle question. So we're given the equation of a circle. We want to find the center and radius. So again, another concept question. If we're given an equation, we want to find center and radius, and it's not in standard form, what process are we going to do? We're going to complete the square. We might have to do it once, we might have to do it twice. It depends how many x terms or y terms we have. So in this case, you guys were given if x squared plus y squared minus 2x minus 6 equals 0. If this is an equation of a circle, find the center and radius. So, let's group our x pieces together, group our y pieces, move the number to the other side. So I have x squared minus 2x, and then all I have is y squared, and then I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So because all I have is a y squared, I don't have to complete the square on that guy. It's just going to be what? 0 is the coordinate for the center for the y piece. But for the x, I need to complete the square. So I take b, which is negative 2. Half of that is negative 1. Square that value is plus 1. I'm going to add 1 inside the parentheses, which means I also have to add 1 on the other side. Keep this thing in balance. So this factors into what? X, and whatever my half of b was, that should be the value that goes in there. So x minus 1 squared plus y squared is 7. And now this is standard form. So now that it's in the standard form, the center is what? The opposite of what I see, so positive 1, and this has a 0. And the radius is what? It's the square root of what's on the right side. So the square root of 7. So your center should be 1, 0. Your radius should be square root of 7. And again, much like the first video, I'm going to go through these kind of quick. If you have questions, hopefully you can rewind. If it's still a little too quick, ask about it on review day. All right, next question, number 3. We want to solve for x. And we have 3x plus 1 over x minus 1 is less than 1. So we have another nonlinear inequality. In this case specifically a quotient inequality. Concept question. What do we have to have before we start solving this kind of problem? We have to have 0 on one side of the inequality. So I need to move that 1 over. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, so I get 3x plus 1 over x minus 1 minus 1 is less than 0. Combine this into one term. So this is like 3x plus 1 over x minus 1 minus, to combine them in the same term, they have to have the same denominator, x minus 1. So I'm going to put x minus 1 in numerator and denominator. And I'm going to put this in parentheses so that when I subtract it, then I know to distribute that negative sign. This is all less than 0. So I get what? 3x minus 1x, that's 2x. And then 1 minus a negative 1 is 1 plus 1, which is 2. All over x minus 1 is less than 0. So now that I have this guy with 0 on one side, everything combined into one term, now I can figure out my breakpoints and do the table. So we have what? 2x plus 2 is 0. So 2x is negative 2. Divide everything by 2, x is negative 1. And from the other one, x minus 1 is 0, so x equals 1. So on my number line, my breakpoints are negative 1 and positive 1. So for test points, again, I can use negative 5, 0, positive 5. You can choose anything you want, just as long as it falls in that interval. So now we figure out, are they pluses or minuses? If I plug in negative 5, I get 2 times negative 5 is negative 10 plus 2 all over negative 5 minus 1. So this is a negative number over a negative number. Negative divided by negative is positive. If I plug in 0, I get 0 plus 2, that's 2 positive, over 0 minus 1, negative 1. So positive over negative is negative. And lastly, plug in positive 5. So 10 plus 2 over 5 minus 1. So this is a positive number over a positive number. So it's a positive interval. Now again, as I mentioned in the first video with our nonlinear inequality there, this is where people get in trouble. For some reason, you guys just keep taking the positive, like, oh, this one's positive, so that's my interval. That's not, positive has nothing to do with it. What I'm worried about is this. Where is this inequality telling me that I want? I want this ratio, all of these that I did, to be less than 0. Less than 0 is negative, so this is the interval I want, which is negative 1 to positive 1. Now I need to plug these endpoints into this inequality to see if it makes it true or not. So if I plug in negative 1, I get what? Negative 2 plus 2, that means I have a 0 in the numerator. Is 0 less than 0? No, it is not. So I cannot use negative 1. It doesn't make that inequality true. And if I plug in positive 1, I get a 0 in the denominator, so I can't have that either. So it's negative 1 to positive 1, parentheses on both of those. All right, next. That was number 3. You guys had 4 questions on this day. fourth question was another system of three equations. So you want to solve. We have 2x minus 2y plus z is equal to 4. 3x plus y equals 5. And x minus y minus z is also equal to 5. So, same methodology as before. I'm going to switch these two rows to start with so I can get a 1 up in the top. So I get what? 1 minus 1 minus 1, 5. And then 3, 1, 0, 5. And then 2, negative 2, positive 1, and 4. So, to get a 0 here, I'm going to do row 1 times negative 3 plus row 2 gives me a new row 2. So this is getting multiplied by negative 3. First row stays the same, 1, negative 1, negative 1, 5. So when I multiply this, negative 3 plus 3, 0. 4, negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 3, plus 1 is 4. 3 plus 0 is 3. And negative 15 plus 5 is negative 10. And then for a 0 down here, I want to do row 1 times negative 2 plus row 3 gives me a new row 3. Multiply this by negative 2. And negative 2 plus 2 is 0. 2 minus 2, another 0. 2 plus 1 is 3. And negative 10 plus 4 is negative 6. So this one worked out nicely. Everything canceled out so that I got the 3 zeros after just 2 moves. You might have to do one more move to get a 0 in that bottom location. That's okay. But now get out of the matrix. So this one tells me what? 3z is negative 6. So divide everything by 3, z is negative 2. And use the next equation up. 4y plus 3 times z, which is negative 2, is negative 10. So 4y minus 6 is negative 10. Whoops, negative 10. Add 6 to both sides. 4y is negative 4. Divide by 4. Y is equal to negative 1. And last but not least, the top equation. So x minus y, which is negative 1, minus z, which is negative 2, is 5. This is x plus 1 plus 2 is 5. X plus 3 is 5. Subtract 3. X is equal to 2. So your answer would be x is 2, y is negative 1, z is negative 2. So that's the problems for 3-4, March 4th. And what do we got, 16 minutes? Okay, so let's do one more day on this video. We have 2 questions. Actually, maybe we'll get through all of it. We'll see. So the next date was March 9th. So we have the compute and simplify the difference quotient, which is f of a plus h minus f of a all over h when h is not 0, for the function f of x is equal to 3x squared minus 2x plus 1. So, first thing we need to do with these problems, figure out f of a plus h. plugging in a plus h anywhere I have an x, so it's 3 times a plus h squared minus 2 times a plus h plus 1. For our binomial theorem, if I have something to the second power, I'm going to end up with 3 terms. This is going to be a squared plus 2ah plus h squared. Distribute the minus 2 to both of these. So minus 2a minus 2h and then plus 1. Now go ahead and distribute this 3. So it's 3a squared plus 6ah plus 3h squared minus 2a minus 2h plus 1. This is our f of a plus h. You will not have any like terms. If you find yourself combining terms at this point, you goof something up because you're not going to have any. They're all different from each other. Now we subtract f of a. So f of a, so this is our f of a plus h in these parentheses. F of a is just take our function and replace the x's with a. So 3a squared minus 2a plus 1. And this whole thing is over h from our formula. If you have done this correctly, all of the f of a pieces better cancel out with something from the a plus h. If they don't, you have something wrong. So what do I have here? I have 3a squared minus 3a squared. Negative 2a minus a negative 2a. So this is negative 2a plus 2a. They cancel out. And 1 minus 1. They cancel out. So now I feel pretty good that I'm on the right path here. And everything I have left should have an h in it. So I have 6ah plus 3h squared minus 2h all over h. And again, this problem gives us these checkpoints the whole way. Everything in the numerator should have an h, which means I can factor an h out. If I do that, what do I get? I get h times 6a plus 3h minus 2 all over h. So the h in the numerator cancels with the h in the denominator, and this piece that's in the parenthesis becomes our final answer. That is our difference quotient. Number 2 from this date. So number 2 is a little bit of review, kind of a refresher so that you keep this fresh in your memory. It's solve for x. And we have 3x squared plus 4x minus 1 is 0. This one does not factor. So again, you basically have 2 options. Complete the square or quadratic formula. I'm going to use quadratic formula. My a is 3, my b is 4, my c is negative 1. So if I plug these in, it's negative b, so negative 4 plus or minus square root of 4 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So this should be your equation. And I've told you guys before, better make sure you have the quadratic equation right on your cheat sheet if you don't have it committed to memory. Otherwise, if you enter in the numbers into a wrong formula, you have no chance of getting this right. So let's simplify it. So we get negative 4 plus or minus square root of 16. Negative times negative is positive. 4 times 3 is 12, all over 6. Simplify this. Negative 4 plus or minus square root of 28, all over 6. And as I warned you guys in the first video, as I've warned you all semester long, you can't cancel 4 and 6 here. It's got to be everything or nothing. Well, I can't cancel anything with the 28 and the 6 because the 28 is under the square root, but I can change 28 into 4 times 7. So square root of 4 is 2, so if I bring that out, I get 4 plus or minus 2 times square root of 7 all over 6. And now I can cancel a 2 out of all of these. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So your final answer is negative 2 plus or minus 1 square root of 7 all over 3. So that's your answer for that. You guys only had 2 problems on that day. So now let's try to see if we can sneak in the last date on the end of this video here. This was on March 11th. So the first one is our composite function. If f of x is equal to the square root of x plus 3, and g of x is x minus 1 squared plus 1. So for A, we want to find f of g of negative 2. And part B is find g of f of 6. So, the quote that I keep giving you guys, the essence of math is to make complicated things simple, not simple things complicated. So with this problem, don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. All we're going to do for the first problem is calculate what is g of minus 2. So g of minus 2, we use this function, we plug in a negative 2, so we get negative 2 minus 1 squared plus 1. So this is negative 3 squared plus 1. Negative 3 squared is 9. 9 plus 1 is 10. So g of minus 2 is 10, so plug that into here. So what this problem is really just asking me is a tricky way of what's f of 10. So plug 10 into your f function. You have the square root of 10 plus 3, so square root of 13. Well, wait, that's not a nice number. I keep telling you, it's not always going to be a nice number. This one happens to be square root of 13. You can't simplify it. It just ends up square root of 13. What about g of f of 6? So first of all, find out what's inside f of 6. So plug 6 into our f function. We get 6 plus 3 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3. So plug this back in. So we're really just looking for g of 3, which if I plug it in there, I get 3 minus 1, square that, plus 1. 3 minus 1 is 2. So 2 squared plus 1 is 4 plus 1, which is 5. So for part A, your answer should be square root of 13. For part B, your answer should be positive 5. And last but not least, number 2 is an investment problem, i.e. a mixture of money. So, an investor invests $1,000 at 5%. How much should be invested at 10%? So she earns 8% on the total investment the first year. So again, let's set up these little boxes like I showed you guys in the first video with the mixture. So we have what? We have one ingredient, or in this case, one investment with the second investment, and they're going to get poured into this box to give me my total investment. So the first one is what? Well, they invested $1,000 at 5%, so this is $1,000 at 5%. And what's the second one? Well, it's a 10% investment. And how much? I I don't know, that's what we're looking for. So that's my x. So when these two get mixed together, it's what? The total amount is 1,000 plus x. And how much interest do we want? Well, it specifies we want 8% of the total amount. So in our table, we have amount, percent, and interest. So the first one is 1,000 at 5%, so 0.05. Multiply that across, we get 50. And then this one, x, times 0.1, so 0.1x goes in that box. And lastly, 1,000 plus x times 8%, 0.08, so 0.08 times 1,000 plus x. So we only have one unknown, so we only need one equation. So we have 50 plus 0.1x equals 0.08 times 1,000 plus x. So I have one decimal place here, I have two decimal places here, so I have to do what? I have to multiply to get two decimal places, so 100. So 50 times 100, so add two zeros, I get 5,000. Move the decimal two places here, so I get 10x. Move the decimal places here, I get 8 times 1,000 plus x. So now the decimals are gone. I don't have to deal with them anymore. I can just deal with whole numbers. So simplify this. You get 5,000 plus 10x is distribute the 8,000 plus 8x. So subtract 8x from both sides. Subtract 5,000 from both sides. We get 2x is equal to 3,000. Divide everything by 2. Tells me that x, the amount that I'm trying to invest, let's see, where can I write this that you'll see it? Right up here. So x is equal to 3,000 divided by 2, so 1,500. So your answer would be 1,500. So that's it. That wraps up your ticket out the door problems for the content between exam 1 and exam 2. Hope you guys can work these. We'll see you in class for review day, and then let's crush that exam 2.